And you are providing some very nice information in terms of how you get to that little beacon on the hill.
Right, yes, right. Okay, so Mike, and then I want to move on to, so we can get to badges.
Hopefully mine will be a short question, though. So to flip it and look at it on the other side, what if a resource is sterling, awesome,
Yeah.
it's high rating, it's added into all of these different distributed systems, and then at some point along the way, they lose funding, they suddenly become a bad resource, or they start having commercial interests or inappropriate content in there. Is there a check or a balance or a way that, other than those folks that have already given a thumbs up and put it in their system, noticing the change and pulling it out, is there some other way that a nudge could come?
So this is called a friendly question. I can hit this question. Thank you. Yes. So this is for people who deal in metadata, and Mike has significant expertise here. This is a very exciting thing that we're doing. For people that don't deal with metadata, like, well, I want to see the end game, right? From the value. In the traditional model, when somebody creates a resource, they publish a piece of metadata, and metadata is just data about data, which is basically saying, what's the title of this? Who's the author? And then more complicated things like, is this aligned to a standard, and things like that. But it's just data about the resource. That piece of metadata gets published with the resource, and then we're done. And then that just travels around with the thing, and everyone loads it in, and then it turns out that the metadata is no longer connected. It's a 2002 resource aligned to California standards, and now it was good, but it's not good for the expectations that we're generating now. That's a problem. Learning Registry offers this very, very interesting metadata opportunity, which is New York detects that, or California detects that, and says, this resource, known as this, is no good anymore. They can make that statement. And if New York trusts you, they would say, oh, thank you very much, I will remove it from my index, and I no longer will list it to my teachers. So that sort of assertion is decoupled from the original source. Other people can talk about resources besides the original creator. And that, to me, is an extremely powerful opportunity for this project. That's why it's interesting.
I'm sorry. So then you're saying, so the margin, because I used to have a website with all these resources.
Right.
Okay, and it's still up. Every once in a while, I get an email saying this link is down.
Right.
So, but what you're saying...
You're getting it, yes.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to follow for you. So what you're saying is that, because then that's me, the person, that have to go in and change that website.
Exactly.
Or review it. Or,
That's
well,
right.
no, I never review it. So I'm being honest, right? I never review it.
That's the
so
reality.
every once in a while, I get an email, right? So that's what I'm asking here. Is there a person who's going to review this, or are you depending on someone saying it's changed?
Well, there's magic here, right? There's a certain amount of decisions that you have to make as to how you're going to handle this problem. So it could be automated if you chose to handle that, where you say, I trust these 16 publishers, say these 5 states, these commercial publishers, whatever they tell me is true. So you can make that decision. And so anytime they tell me something, I will take action internal to my system to delete or relocate. So someone might publish, this resource is low quality, I delete it. This resource is no longer located at that location, destination unknown, deleted. This resource has been moved to a new place. I'll update my link to point to the correct location. All could work automatically in this communication network. This is not step one, so I'm really conscious. I do not want to sell vaporware. This is not step one, but these are things that can be done with this technology in a fairly efficient way. We've designed it to solve these problems, but we have to implement it and start sharing this kind of information. First, I think we'll start by sharing Common Core aligned resources. This resource is useful for teaching this standard. California, Idaho, Arizona, Utah, Massachusetts, Ohio, Florida, New York, Michigan. These are all states that have expressed some interest in undertaking this type of thing. Just sharing amongst each other strikes me as a step in the pool. We can get our ankles wet. We can step in the pool without having to figure out how deep the deep end is, which is you're going to some pretty sophisticated opportunities. I want to get there. I want to get to quality. And I'm just asking, how do we get there in a way that doesn't cause us to hold our breath for a few years and spend money and work on something that generates no value? So I think we generate a lot of value if we can share with each other what we know about Common Core aligned standard resources. And then we say, oh, well, I'm not going to share the alignment. I'm going to share some indication of quality or suggestion of quality. Now I'm going to share some indication of where it's located. Right? We can do some more sophisticated things once we build the muscle in the community about doing this. So that's the pitch. So I'm going to hand it over to Carla to give you some information about the badge project, and then I think we have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end, and hopefully we can stand up. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us here today. We're really excited to talk to you about open badges. Great. We're already off to a good start. So a little bit about Mozilla before we move into the kind of open badges in general. Mozilla is a nonprofit organization. We're dedicated to making the web a better place. A lot of our projects come out and kind of, they're open source projects, and they're aimed at improving things for the betterment of the web and also for individuals. And we take privacy very strongly, very strongly within the world of Mozilla. We work with the worldwide community to develop a whole series of products. Probably one that you are most familiar with is Firefox. The one we're going to talk about today is Open Badges. So that's a little bit about us. About 2 years ago, we actually every year we hold a festival. It's kind of a themed festival. And about 2 years ago, we had one that was focused on learning, and it was called Learning, Freedom, and the Web. I always like to put the word freedom generally within all the titles. And we kind of wanted to think about how people learned things and then how they were represented. And we recognized that learning was kind of happening everywhere. It wasn't just necessarily happening within the world of academics, but also the web had kind of produced this opportunity for people to learn and be self-taught, and for people to share information and for peers to learn from one another. So we thought about that, and we thought, okay, what if we actually used badges for learning? So we kind of jumped from that. It was kind of a big leap. What if we started to try to actually recognize the learning that was happening already, but outside of traditional and formal worlds? And it's our little logo from our website. I'll actually take you through a little bit of the website later on. And we came up with the idea of open badges. This is a little bit different from the digital badges that I think most people talk about. Digital badges really right now, unless they are OBI compliant, and OBI is Open Badge Infrastructure, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But open badges are really kind of a universal standard that we're developing. And when you hear people talk about badges, let's say, for example, Khan Academy or Code Academy, they're issuing badges as representations of learning, but they're actually not open badges. Open badges is a whole ethos, and I will go into a little bit more detail about specifically how open badges come into play and then how we're trying to create an ecosystem. So for us, badges are kind of just representations. They're visual representations of skills or competencies, achievements, interests, affiliations. So you can actually, a lot of times hear people reference the idea of, let's say, traditional scout badges. The idea that you had skills or you worked towards skills and then you earned badges and they were representations. So one thing that I want to clarify here is that the badges are actually all earned. They're not kind of just given for no apparent reason, or just, it's not like a Foursquare badge where you just get one for showing up. Although there is relevance to having badges for things like that, and we can have a little bit of a conversation about that, but we're kind of trying to get people to think about them not necessarily as assessments, but actually as micro-credentials. So we try to distinguish between thinking of them as assessments. You use assessments in order to award the badges, but the badges themselves are actually credentials. As I mentioned, they can represent both formal and informal learning. So sometimes people ask, well, can we start to introduce these into an academic environment? Absolutely. For us, it's a matter of trying to make sure that learning gets captured everywhere and that badges are representations so that they can become a living transcript to a certain degree. And again, I'll explain a little bit more. I'm kind of giving you the very top-level view right now of how badges work. They can complement traditional educational practices, or they can act entirely outside of them. So it might be that an organization